What's good with it in the hood with it? Welcome back to the Collective Clips, where you already know what it is, man. Cooking with the gun and a war story, right? So we're going to talk a little bit about, some of the things of the past, man, a war story. Meanwhile, I got the motherfucking garlic in already, the onion, little oil, sauteing that up. Gonna melt that down one time for my mind, because today I'll be making homemade carne asada tacos. What you know about that, right? But gun, you're a diabetic. You can't be eating a lot of carbs. Fuck that and fuck the world. You know what I mean? I'm going to get down. I'm going to have me a few tacos, and we're not going to do too much, but it is what it is. But before we get into the story of the day, man, let's hit that like and subscribe button. Put your notification bell on also. That way you're directed to the dope content that I am kicking. And I highly appreciate all the support I've been getting. You guys like these cooking videos? I know I'm not like the typical cooking video where I'm going to show you every fucking ingredient, homes. I'm Mexican, right? I'm Mexican, so I do it hood shit. I lay the motherfucking oil down, and whatever goes in the pan goes in the pan. So I got me some garlic and onions, and that's what it is, right? The carne asada right here, little cilantro on it. I hit it with my house seasonings, and you'll see what it is. So let's get to the story. What y'all know about the Hell's Angels, right? A very dangerous group, a group that started in California, man, and in Oakland, California. And, I've heard that, they had big chapters all throughout Northern and Southern California, and they're with the business. I never had no willings and dealings with Hell's Angels. I mean, when I was in prison, I came across a few, and they functioned up under the white guys. I know at one point in time, there was a little bit of beef between the AB, the brand, and the Hell's Angels, because, motorcycle clubs, bikers, pretty much are their own, homes. They don't want to function under nobody's direction. They want to do their own thing. Of course, eventually, there's only so much you can do in prison, and they got with the program. But in them times, in the beginning of times, there was a lot of Hell's Angels that were going at it with the woods, and they were trying to separate themselves and distance themselves from their people. The Hell's Angels being predominantly a white group. Now, at the end of the day, there are a lot of Mexicans from the Hell's Angels. That's a fact, man. I know a lot of people think that they're racially motivated in some of the things that they do, but that's furthest from the truth, man. I got a lot of homeboys. I have a homeboy from my neighborhood that I grew up with, man, that is actually in the Merced chapter of Hell's Angels, man. He's rocking like that. This shit is looking good. It's smelling better. So, I had a Theo, man. I've spoken on my Theo Joe a lot, rest in peace, who was a real one, who represented Turlock, represented Oakland. He was one of those guys, man. He's from the old school. Albeit that he was, always in Oakland and Bay Area. He had that shit on him. We have a lot of family in Turlock, California, man, in Stanislaus County, right by Modesto. So it's like in the middle of Modesto, Merced. He ran thick with cats from Turlock. Well, somewhere along the line, me having an uncle from the old school that was from the Hells Angels, my uncle was heavily affiliated with bikers. It's the same thing with my father, man. They fucked with the bikers. Back in them days, a lot of the cholos and low riders and shit, we're cool with some of the bikers. That's just the way it was, man. You will and deal. And, you're cool with whoever you are in the streets, and then you go to prison and you got to separate yourselves from the bullshit, and it is what it is. The funk is on. But anyway, so I remember I got out of prison. I just did a 6-year term. And, immediately, me and my Theo would get in contact. Straight up off the rip. And he was actually doing good for himself, man. He had a nice little pad in Merced out in the cuts right off Alexander. I was proud of him. He had met an old lady. He was finally doing good. I was so used to him being in and out of prison my whole life that it seemed like we were missing each other. I went to the youth authority. He was in prison again. I'd get out. He'd be back in doing a violation. I'd started to, go to the CDC, got my number, and started to go to prison. And then he would be out. And, and we just never bumped heads. So this was the first time in a long time that we were actually going to kick it, because he was out. He was out, and I had just got out. So he had a nice little pad. I'm going to drop the carne asada. For those of you that don't know, there's a little cilantro in it. So let's get that shit cracking. That shit smells bomb. Right up, throw that over here in the sink. Most of the time I wash as I go. I like cleanliness is next to godliness. But in this case, I'm doing a video. So I'm going to have to put that on red. Hit it with a little bit of garlic powder. We're going to get right back to the story. Don't trip. I know you guys are intrigued. Little garlic powder never hurt nobody. You got to have a little side. You can't. And notice I don't measure nothing. Like I said, I'm from the hood, homie. I don't do that bullshit. Pepper, get it how you can get it. And that's just what it is. Those are my 3 key ingredients, my core ingredients. I got some special seasoning that I'm gonna hip you to, man. White people shit. You know them white, they up on game. And you're gonna see how I do it. These tacos are spectacular. So let's let that cook down as I tell the story. Ooh wait. So anyways, I go to my tío's pad. We're kicking it. Like I said, nice spot. And he would have a lot of his old school homies, straight tecatos. You know, my uncle was deep into the spoon game. He would have a lot of them coming in and out of the pad, you know. And it was always, he would always tell me this: don't worry about my business. Worry about your own fucking business. Whatever my homeboys, they don't even talk to my homeboys. Just let me do my thing. And you make sure your tia doesn't see me doing my thing, right? And that was it. So I was always exposed to it. I was always this lookout. So anyways, a couple of my most of these guys that would come to visit my tío were either old school norteño homeboys or blacks. He had a lot of black homeboys from Oakland. Like I said, he ran in the circles in Oakland tough for a long time. And the northerners back in them days and the blacks were they had a strong bond, man. So he had a lot of old school black homies that would come bring him shit, or he would serve him shit. He was always like in the middle. Like he either was serving it or getting it. You know what I mean? Or was getting high his own supply. Either way, he was winning. So anyways, I go to his pad, like I chilled at his pad. I was there every day, you know, it was the spot to be at. And there was always a lot of young homies around. His old lady at the time, she had younger brothers, right? That were actually from, a couple of them were from my neighborhood. They ended up being from my neighborhood. A couple of them were from the boys, ghetto boys, right? And for those of you that don't know who the ghetto boys are, the rapper GB, that's his neighborhood. So they'd be out there, a couple dudes from M Street, different hoods. Everything was all love. It was all cool, man. We'd be in the back drinking, partying. My uncle didn't give a fuck as long as you did disrespect his house. There was no fighting, no bullshit at his pad, or you were going to have to see him, and he was a big monster that nobody wanted to see. Everyone respected him. So anyways, one day I go to his pad, right? And there's a black dude from Oakland there, skinny black dude. And this guy had always been a little standoffish. Every time I would like try to say, you know, how you doing or whatever. Because, you know, I've always gotten along with the brothers to the fullest. I've gotten in the mix a lot of times with them, I'm not going to lie. Because of how they were feeling or how I was feeling at that particular time. But we always, for the most part, got along. But this dude, he just seemed a little off-brand, man. He seemed a little standoffish, you know, like his shit didn't stink. And, you know, that being that was my uncle's homeboy, I wasn't going to disrespect him at my uncle's pad or none of that shit. But it was what it was. So anyways, this dude, I guess he was rubbing people the wrong way. And he had come up short on some of my uncle's money. And he was there for a reason. Okay, and I can speak on the story now. My uncle's passed, and statute of limitations has went away. So, I'm chilling, and one of the biggest white persons, human beings I ever see walks past me. Now we're all in this garage. My uncle had all kinds of weights in the garage, and he had a little bathroom in his garage where he spent most of his time. I was trying to be on the weights, even though I wasn't really working out. I was trying to fucking fake it till I made it. And the black dude's right there kicking back, and he's already all got out. He's already all nodding out. And so it's about to be a nod session, and when they got to that point, man, I would usually just bounce, you know, because there wasn't nothing I could tell my uncle. Like I said, man, he was doing his thing, and you don't disrespect, you know, the older people. You know, you just, I come from a long line of, you know, let them do what they do, homie. That's a whole different era. They were into a different type of shit. So anyways, this big fucking white dude walks into the garage. And I remember him, particularly, I remember him so good because he had the longest fucking braid I ever seen in my life. He had, you know, just his hair was all slicked back. He had a long braid. Well, come to find out later on, he was a very well-known Hell's Angel. And I remember the way he was looking, man. He kind of just looked at me, and he looked at my uncle like, what the fuck is he doing here? Because it was about to get tricky, real tricky, right? And I could sense it. I could feel it. This dude was not the type of individual. Have you ever been around a person that you just were like, fuck that? Debo shit. A monster, right? Someone that walks in, I don't give a fuck how hardcore of a gang member you are. I don't fear nobody. Care about none of that, homie. There's been a time in your life where somebody has walked into the chante, to the pad, and you've been like, oh, hell to the no, right? You don't want none of that smoke. So anyways, he was that one. So he walks in, and he had pulled up in a van and whatever, right? You know, he had all his tools back there. So anyways, he starts chopping it with my uncle. My uncle gives him a hug. There's a mutual respect there, a very mutual respect. And little did I know that I guess this black dude that was there had been getting credit from people and burning them, not coming through with their money, always giving them another excuse. You know, it was always something. And they had a lot of love for this dude. A lot of these guys had been doing business. Now it's a trip, huh? You got a black dude, a white dude, and a Mexican dude. Ain't that the lead off to a joke, right? But this was no joking matter. I guess my Theo and this Hell's Angel had come to an understanding that this dude wasn't gonna walk away unscathed this day. This black dude was gonna pay the piper, humps. He was finally going to figure out and find out exactly what it is in the game when you burn people, right? So I'm chilling right there, and I sense something's going on, and instead of me getting on down the road because I don't want to be involved, I'm intrigued. I want to see what's going to happen. My uncle's not telling me to bounce. There's been a lot of things that he got involved in that he would tell me, hey, mijo, you got to go, right? You can't see this shit. This shit is different, right? But this day, it was kind of like, I don't know if it was the black that he was on or whatever. He wasn't tripping. He was just like, whatever, humps. And I seen this black dude. I'm watching everything, and I could see him feeling uncomfortable. He kept saying, hey, Joe, all right, bro, I got a long drive. I'm going to get out of here. My uncle kept feeding him beers. Like, nah. It's cool. Kick it. Now, meanwhile, this Hell's Angel dude, big dude's just sitting there being very, very quiet, right? Now, I was always told in my household by my father, who kicked it with a lot of bikers, rest in peace to my dad, and a lot of my older Theos, man, the Hell's Angels were the group you didn't want to fuck with, okay? If you're from California, Northern California, in fact, just like the Mongols in Southern California, the Hell's Angels are the ones you don't fuck with. These guys are not intimidated. They ain't fearing no one. They're in the mix. It's just, I don't know. I always felt that way about them. Like, hey, these are the ones that you don't play games with these guys. Their names, they were kind of like the organizations in prisons. You just don't speak on them too much because they'll fucking put in that work. At this time, I told a story a long time ago on my very first channel about a Theo of mine getting killed by some Hell's Angels, man. And it was just real tricky, right, when it comes to them cats in my household. Growing up around my father and him hanging out with the bikers all the time, I learned that shit. You just don't get involved with them. So anyways, I could see something's up, so I'm kicking back. And this black dude's starting to get nervous, man. He keeps up coming with excuses to go to the bathroom. I ain't never seen no one piss more times than a man with diabetes or the black guy that's nervous, right? So he's over there pissing like a racehorse. And I could see my uncle telling the white guy, giving him like I see it was like, it's going to go down, right? So this white dude gets up and he's like, hey, Joe, hey, good looking out. I'm going to bounce. And I'm thinking, okay, maybe I was reading into this shit wrong. Maybe there was really nothing going on. Shit, right? This dude goes to his van and comes back with the chain, humps, right? Have you ever seen those real, not a big chain, but those real thin chains? They're like for fucking, like fishing, stringing up fish. They're for like stringing, like a stringer. It's like a stringer for fish. But it's a chain that has like a thing on the end of it. You could connect it so the fish could stay in the water. You put the shit in the ground. Stringer for the fish. Anyways, it's one of those chains. Those are real strong, humps. Those are built for tough. So he comes back with one of those, but this ain't a small one. This motherfucker's long. And the black dude's right there. Now the black dude's more comfortable because the guy was gone, but he was in his van getting whatever he was getting, right? And so when the white dude walks back in, he's like, hey, Joe, I forgot my phone. And as he comes in, the black dude sees the phone, and it's on like a couch that my uncle had because he had his weight set. He had a couch, like a recliner and a couple chairs. He had it hooked up. See, that was Man Cave 101 right there. That was, we used to get our norteño on in that motherfucker, right? As the black dude reaches over, toma, puto, right? He got him in the chain link fence. That fool hopped up out of the chair, the sofa. I just seen his legs fly up, and now he's getting choked out, right? That dude wrapped that shit around him, brought it around his chest, and did it like a fucking ninja, like a white ninja, right? He had that fucking shit wrapped in his hands. That dude was chained up, choking. He was choking himself. Every time he leaned forward, the shit choked him back, right? Now the shit got real. So now, for a period of about, I don't know, a couple hours, man, in real life, I literally seen this guy go through some bullshit, right? I'll tell you this much, that traumatized me. As a person, I have post-traumatic, just based on what I seen right there when it comes to them Hell's Angels. They didn't body him. They didn't do none of that. They merely dealt with him for a little while. Torture tactics, man. I hate to say that on YouTube, but it's the truth. And it was a lesson to be learned that you don't fuck with other people's money, and you definitely don't disrespect the Hell's Angels. So now, the story gets a little Mickey tricky, right? Shout out to Crip Mac. They let this black guy go. He's vowing to come back with the money. My uncle's like, don't fuck with me, Holmes. I don't play with you. You're no longer welcome to my house. Call me. We'll meet up, whatever, right? So after he leaves, the white dude, they're laughing. They're drinking beer. I'm still not saying anything. I'm just looking around like, oh, shit. You know what I mean? These motherfuckers did some horrible shit to this dude. Hey, you ever seen that? I was about to say, you ever seen that motherfucking movie, Kill Bill? Or was it not Kill Bill? What was that one? The one with fucking John Travolta and them, and Samuel L. Jackson. Remember Bruce Willis and we about to get medieval on his ass, right? They did that without the no homo shit, right? They didn't literally stick beep out to him, but there was threats of it. It was wild, right? I was like, oh shit, should I be here for this? A couple weeks later, right? I'm doing my thing. I'm not at my Theo's, whatever, man. That was my first time running into that Hell's Angel dude, which actually, you know, he has a I'll tell you about his case that he ended up getting famous for, right? Which he already had and I didn't know. So anyways, I bounce. A couple weeks later, I guess the black dude comes back. This time he comes back with 3 or 4 homeboys. Tries to do a home invasion on my uncle. My uncle actually shoots one of the dudes and ends up catching the case. And my uncle's gone. He goes to prison on that, right? He ended up catching, I think it was like 6 or 7 years on that case right there. It was an ugly situation. But, you know, you can't expect to do something in your household, do something at your home, and you never do dirt where you lie your head, Humps. Never shit in your own backyard. I learned that lesson a long time ago. And this was a perfect example of a mixture of drugs, bullshit, and burning people got ugly. Damn, this meat is looking fantastic, man. In a minute, I'm going to drain the oil when I'm done with this. I'm going to hit it with my special seasonings. I'm going to show you guys a special season. Make sure the fucking nobody's looking. Bam. Get that shit right there. That's that street taco McCormick shit. That shit adds a little. It's like you put your foot in your mouth, right? You put a little kick to it. That shit's good. I got my homemade salsa, which I pulled out of the refrigerator. I throw a little bit of that salsita in there. And I let that marinate, throw the top on it. Let it pop the top one time after I brown the meat. And then cut up my little onion, cut up my little cilantro, my limes, tacos. Bam. I always get the little street taco. I try to reminisce like if I worked at a taco truck or something, right? Or act like it. And that's what I do. So anyways, my uncle's locked up in prison. And that was that. You know, the white guy got away with that one. But let me tell you the story about this particular individual. So years later, I'm in prison, man. My uncle's doing his time, and then I get out. You know, I do a nice little chunk again, and he's still in. And then eventually we get out, and I end up doing this is about the time when I'm non-active now, and I run into my Theo, and he actually is on his way to pick me up at the pro office. He gets pulled over drinking and driving. He goes to Tracy. I go to Tracy on a violation. I run into him, and we kicked it on the yard together. So my uncle ended up, you know, deciding that if for no other reason, you know, we were going to chill out there. He lasted for a little while. They sent him to a medical facility because my uncle did have, you know, HIV. You know, he ended up catching that shit from sharing needles. You know, back in them days in the 70s, 80s, doing time in Tracy, San Quentin, all that, motherfuckers was catching that SIDA humps because they were sharing, you know, they were sharing Eris. Anyways, so my uncle's locked up, and I remember that my homeboy, we're kicking back one day, and he's like, hey, there's a newspaper article, and this guy beats a case, an old case. And he was like, damn, bro, you hear this thing about, this is a trippy story, this Hell's Angel dude beat this case. I guess in Atwater, California, there was these 2 little girls, man. It was a weird case, too, that had gotten kidnapped and you know, bludgeoned to death. And they actually had arrested this Hell's Angel dude for it. And he ends up ultimately years later beating the case. You know, his false identity. And there's a lot of people that still truly believe he was involved and he did that. His name was, I believe, Michael Thompson. Anyways, when he shows me the picture of this dude in the newspaper, I recognized him. Okay? That was, or he looked allegedly like that guy, right? And so years later, I asked my Theo. Of course, he doesn't say nothing. He's like, nah, that wasn't him. Just looks like him. But I asked my uncle, hey, what's your affiliation with these Hells Angels? And he says, you know, I've always respected him. We got a lot of history. And I find out years later, after my uncle passes, that that dude right there was actually his ex-old ladies, related to his ex-old ladies. So that's how he was kicking it with them. And you know, it was just a trip. That story, I wanted to put it out there because I remembered. You know, I remembered it the other day, and I was like, you know, fucking, I'm gonna talk about, you know, how these dudes move differently. You know, I've been involved in a lot of shit in my life. You know, a lot of things I cannot speak on YouTube. I refuse to, because that will, you know, ultimately fucking be my demise. But I could tell you this, man. For them 2 hours, those were the most trickiest, craziest 2 hours of my life. And I shouldn't have been in that room. I shouldn't have seen that. I shouldn't have, been able to visualize that or see what happens. It's statute of limitation now. Shit's way gone. It never got reported. People don't report shit. What's he gonna do? They beat me up because I burnt them on their drugs, right? Nah, I wasn't nothing like that. The black dude came back, did what he did, and got shot, or his homeboy did, and that was that. Real gangster shit. So you automatically assume that people live a certain type of way, and there's nothing. I'm not trying to glorify these stories. I'm just telling you true stories, shit that really goes on, and really happens. What turned into a festive occasion of kicking it with my Theo and just relaxing and doing our thing, turned into a nightmare. And it's just that easy. It happens to you. I've told you guys stories, man. How one time my own homeboys try to murk me. There was a big thing going on in Merced at that time, and my name was out there involved in it. A lot of people were blaming me or placing the blame, thinking that I had something to do with a case that was going on, which a motherfucker ultimately got dusted. And I had nothing to do with it, but there was a lot of people feeling a certain type of way because of who the guy was that got killed. And, I actually got lured to a home, bro. And when I got there was a tarp laid out, and they said they were painting the house, but the way people kept looking at each other, that's why you got to stay aware and all that shit. I could see something real tricky was going on. Anyways, with that being said, I hope that you move smooth with a purpose. I'm definitely going to show you guys at the end how these street tacos came out. The get down was real. And you're going to get to see, just how I do it. How I cook, man. I show you a little bit of this and a little bit of that. And at the end, you see the end result. So with that being said, move smooth with a purpose. I hope you enjoy the story. It's true. It's facts. It's all real, man. Stay aware of your surroundings, because you never know when you're that motherfucker hog-tied with a fishing chain and you're like, oh, hell no. That brother was scared to death, man. It is what it is. Thumbs up or thumbs down. Heavy's going to be the head that wears the crown. I'm going to continue to strive, struggle, and strive for what I honestly, truly believe in. And that's two things, man. The betterment of all people, and these tacos I'm about to fuck up in a minute. Bang, bang, the gun. And this is the finished product. Homemade carne asada tacos. You got the homemade chile right there. A little limon, cilantro. And of course, there's the tacos. So bomb. Homemade salsa, cilantro, a limon. And of course, a serrano. Bam. You could add onion if you like. I don't like onion. You could add some fucking queso. Whatever you want. Aguacate. I'm about to bust out the aguacate. It's going to get ugly right now. Bang, bang.